Good news, you're here just in time. Here's another Laneway Talks.
Hi Helen, it's Vincent calling from Laneway Talks. For people that don't know, was the bass player with Do Re Mi. A lot of people might know Deb Conway, who was the singer in Do Re Mi, but Helen was the bass player. And Do Re Mi are distributed through Laneway Music, and we're just going to talk a little bit about the life and times of Helen Carter. So how are you, Helen?
I'm terrific. Thank you, Vincent.
Now, I'd like to just start off when we do this every time with each artist is, where did you grow up? Where did you come from?
I came from when I was a real little one, living in country New South Wales. And then when I was about 5 or 6, moved to Sydney and lived in Bondi, which at that time was quite a different place than it is now. It was very low socioeconomic area. I went to Bondi Beach Public School and, so I had a beachy type of existence down there up until I left home at 16.
Well, tell me, how did you get into music? When did you know that music was a calling for you?
Probably when I started going out with Roger Bearson.
We all know Roger, yeah.
We all know Roger. And so I was about 17 at the time.
Yep.
And Roger was just starting out in his kind of music career with the Thought Criminals, and I was, hanging around with those people.
Yeah.
I lived in the squats in Darlinghurst for a number, probably, 6 months maybe.
Yeah.
And so there was a very arty and musical existence there in Darlinghurst at that time. So I really got a taste of the DIY playing music and just being involved in that scene and going to the Grand Hotel and the Civic. And
were you already a musician by that stage? Had you picked up a bass or a guitar?
No, I had not. It was one of those things where I was at a party. Someone said, I'm going to play the guitar now. Here, you play the bass. And that was it.
What, you're joshing me. So you pick up the bass and
yep.
you start strumming away.
Start playing.
Playing away. I mean,
it's true.
So you must have had some natural instinct for what I call having a beat in you. I mean, you can't be a musician if you do not have a beat in you.
No.
I can try and teach anybody, I'm a drummer and whatever, but if you haven't got the beat, it's not going to happen. Now, the same there. So you obviously had that creative ability within yourself.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't do music at school or anything like that, but I certainly loved music and attended concerts and bought albums from 12 years of age. I think I had some friends of my parents who might have given me a few singles at the time.
What were you buying, Helen? Now, let's just go back a bit and let's try and see what music genre you liked. Yeah, don't embarrass yourself, okay?
Okay, well, I think the first single I actually purchased with my own money was a Deep Purple single.
Tell me it wasn't Smoke on the Water, please.
No, I think it was Highway Star.
Oh, thank Christ.
Yeah.
Wow, that's...
you said you weren't going to embarrass me. Now I'm embarrassed.
No, well, that's... I mean... and Deep Purple, Highway Star, it doesn't fit with Do Re Mi, and that's quite a good kind of difference in fact.
Well, I was very much into rock and roll, so my other love as a teenager was Slade, and then of course AC/DC, and then I started to get more interested in the guitar-based alternative pre-punk, I guess, music of mostly the British and European bands.
Yeah.
But, I started off being pretty much just pretty rocky.
So essentially then, you were very music orientated mentally. It's like, obviously, my whole life has been music, whether it be the business side or music. But what I did at a young age was you went to a record store and you explored music, and that's all you lived for.
Yeah.
I lived for that.
Yeah. And I was so lucky that I had people around me that did that. And so I wasn't necessarily exploring it myself in that way, but I was around people, and I was around people who played music, not in any professional manner, but it was more of that alternative scene where people would just pick up a guitar or a bass and just have a go, and then basically you brought your audience with you because they were all your friends, and the big thing was going out and seeing bands. But at the same time, when John Foy had Red Eye and Phantom and all of those sorts of things in Sydney, we had people who were out there exploring and introducing us to these new sounds.
Tell me, what was your first band? I mean, was there a first band, or was it just Do Re Mi?
Yeah. No. The first band was called Friction, and we released. Who was in it? It was me, Ruby Davies, who is now a very well-known photographer.
Absolutely.
And Bruce Warner, who was a singer in the Thought Criminals, his sister Fiona, who is sadly not with us anymore, she was the singer. And we had, for at least a part of the time in the beginning, Dan Rumer from Cruel Sea and others as our guitarist. Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic.
And so John Bakasidis from, name of his.
Well, tell me too, what genre of music were you playing?
It was like the Raincoats or
okay, got it.
Yeah, the Slits, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So we have actually released a single through John Bakasidis' label, Blank Records. That's what it is. And that is just basically 3 songs that we recorded on a cassette player at Day Street Studios in Sydney, also a very famous rehearsal and recording place. And in fact, John Foy was running his screen printing business out there as well for a while.
So what happened from there, from the Friction?
From there, look, I mean, it was kind of going to gigs. I went to Brownies in Paddington. Yeah. And I was just literally, I can't remember who we were seeing, but, it's obviously someone at the time. And I was literally standing there, and I overheard somebody behind me have a conversation about looking for a bass player. So I just turned around and said, I'm a bass player.
Oh, God. That's fantastic.
I was just a young person. I guess I had confidence.
Yeah.
A bit of confidence. But that person turned out to be Orland Bray, who is the drummer in Do Re Mi.
Yeah.
And so he went back to Melbourne, and then about a year later, he and Deb moved to Sydney, and the 3 of us formed Do Re Mi, and then Stephen was kind of, I don't know, he just exited the Thoughties and hadn't really wanted to kind of get involved with anything permanently, but, as it turned out, he got sucked in as well, and we were all in it together as Do Re Mi from there. So that was about 81, 82.
Oh, right. Okay. Very, very prolific couple of years there, especially in Sydney. With their alternative scene, the Celebrate Rifles were happening, the list just goes on. Spy versus Spy. So
look, it was Metals, it was Hunters, it was Spies. Yeah. There were so many bands that came out at that time, because there was a lot of places to play, and that's where you went and learned your skills.
Oh, that's no doubt. So tell me, Do Re Mi start. So you start rehearsing, getting ready, you start your gigs. So what's the reaction like? Get your first gig, nobody there, or did you do a support?
Well, look, we had contacts in the alternative art scene in Darlinghurst.
Yeah.
So we only knew 4 songs, and we were asked by the Art Unit Collective out at Alexandria to come and be part of a multidisciplinary event that they were holding. So it was in one of those warehouses. Art Unit was in a warehouse out of Alexandria, and so it was lighting, it was film, it was performance, and then there was 4 little people from Do Re Mi performing their 4 songs, and the people that were there loved it so much we had to play them twice. So it was encouraging.
Oh my God! So from there, any kind of interest from record companies, or do you just start gigging for the next year?
No, we just started gigging and building up our repertoire, and we were fairly. I guess it was what it was, that we were fairly strident in our approach and didn't want to compromise on our idealistic beliefs at that time. And some of those beliefs I still hold, but a lot of them I think, I cringe, But we didn't want to compromise, didn't want to become part of the, I guess, the mainstream.
Well, yes, you weren't the countdown
club.
type, yeah.
But we eventually were approached probably after we released 2 EPs on our own and financed them ourselves. And then after that, Dirty Pool, who managed the Angels and Cold Chisel, and others approached us. And we were definitely not like Cold Chisel or the Angels, so I guess we were something different to add to their stable of artists.
Yeah, and this is for all the listeners, this is management, correct?
Yeah, management, yeah.
And tell me, something this is my personal opinion on Do Re Mi, is that, and I can still, I'll sound quite sexist here towards the male side, is that I knew it as a female band. The guys in the band were essentially there, but it was you and Deb Conway. And I think from perspective of the persona of you two that seem to always be out there pushing, visually, and essentially, which is fantastic, because I keep saying here in the offices all the time, we don't have enough female artists, and it is
we still don't,
and it's quite difficult to find. And so it was really striking for me. I would never have even noticed the guys in the band. I'll tell you honestly, it was about you.
Yeah, and look, I think for the time, Vincent, it was unusual, and sadly, we always used to get those women in rock kind of questions when we were interviewed. And I mean, Stephen was very shy, and so he was quite happy not to be out front. And Dorland was very much a strong influence behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I would like to think that we've made leaps and bounds in terms of profile and respect and status of women in the music industry. But sadly, when you look at the lineup of these festivals, giant festivals that are happening, there are some exceptions, but most of the time it's pretty much a sausage fest.
Absolutely. Well, tell me, Do Re Mi, you got management, and that's a very powerful management company that you had at the time. It's and very
the mafia.
Yeah, exactly, and very well known compared to today's management companies. Today's they're very backseat, but back then they were very forward, and so they've obviously gone out and got you a record deal, correct?
Yes, we had. I think we did actually. I've got I'm sort of archivist of the group, so I've got a lot of material that I've kept that I can reflect back on. So we got a rejection from CBS, I think, but I think we sent them our independently funded EPs, and then we didn't know what we were doing, but then so Dirty Pool, Keith Welsh was our key person, and they got some interest from Virgin, and then Virgin Australia was actually being established at that time, so it was Drop Bears, Samurai Trash, Do Re Mi.
Was that with Laurie Dunn?
Moira Bennett.
And then Laurie came in after. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so we were part of that. I think they had 4, but I can't remember the other ones. So Samurai Trash, Drop Bears, Do Re Mi, and whoever. But so we were their first 4 in their stable of artists, and we just started negotiating and working on how we were going to the next steps after releasing 2 independent EPs.
Tell me something. Tell me something, Helen. And it's interesting you say that we started negotiation about obviously a deal, but put the deal aside because they happen no matter what. It's black and white. You take it or you don't. And then negotiating how we wanted to move forward and what we want to do. And I put that up against young bands today, and that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen to the extent it happened back then. You had a lot more, I think, control in which way you were going. Now, bands on their own, it's different, but if they're signing to majors nowadays, it is basically, here you go, let's go, and if they don't like you, you're gone in 2 seconds. I think you were very lucky in experiencing
it's that development stage that might be missing, Vincent, that remember in the old days we had development?
Well, you went in and did demos too, and you tested those demos and whatever. But let's go to the first album, and it's a sensational album, and you've had success straight away, really.
Yeah.
You know.
And against the odds, really, against all
it was your lucky day, Helen.
Educated opinion. Yeah, that's right. Because we went to London and recorded with Gavin McKillop, and when Man Overboard was chosen as the single, we were requested by Virgin to change the lyrics because at that stage, I mean, you would not believe it, given the kind of language that we're allowed to hear now on public broadcasting, right?
Yeah.
But pubic hair and penis envy were considered to be absolutely dreadful, and they had to go.
Yeah. Well, I say to you, Helen, the drugs, sex and rock and roll that was going on, and the audacity to say that you couldn't mention those kind of words. I mean, seriously. It begs belief, doesn't it? Anyway, yes, you were obviously told to calm down and change those lyrics.
That's right. We didn't. So we got into a bit of a Barney, but eventually everyone came to the party and that was fine. And, we were reviewed by, preeminent journalists like Mark Mordew and Toby Creswell.
Everybody,
No, we really got lots of good street cred.
How did you deal with, if I look at the graph, so you're just meandering along and bang, the graph goes right up. How did you deal with it?
When you're young, you're kind of just on riding the wave, really. I mean, if I knew what I know now, etc., then I might have done things differently. And we'll probably talk about when the band broke up. But we just because we had a management company. We all we had to do was turn up, and be ourselves.
Yeah.
Didn't have to do all of the business stuff behind it, which I dread to think what people young, coming into the industry now have to do. It's really hard.
Oh, it is. There's a lot there.
And so we spent most of our energy just being us and writing songs. But we as you become, I mean, I think you're alluding to sort of sudden fame syndrome.
Yeah, absolutely.
You become kind of
self-aware.
We were no exception.
Yeah, self-aware. Did you change a bit, Helen? I mean, I can tell you, there's so many I know in the industry, and as the number one arrives, they're a different person.
Yeah.
They're a different person, and years on, they reflect back and tell me that, it was pretty ugly, and
we were assholes. Yeah.
Oh my God,
No, we did start to get a bit full of ourselves, but I put anybody in that position, and I think the same would happen. So
And the amount of the amount of TV shows you were doing too back then compared to what happens now, and get ferried. I mean, I'll give you an example. We were making. I was financial controller production for Network 10. So we were doing a music show. So we had In Excess and Kylie, I think, was on the same show.
Yeah.
And so we have Michael Hutchins. He arrives in the helicopter on the front lawn.
They were classic for that kind of stuff.
Chris Murphy arrives in the limousine, on his own, of course, right? The rest of the band come in the Tarago. Now, I don't want to say any more than that, and this is what was going on. It was just like, man, and you were treated like kings, and and it doesn't happen today. It is definitely not happening. Yes, it may if you're in America and you're a top 10 act, top 20 act, but not here. So yeah, you're moving along really quickly. So we get that first album, you tour the hell out of it, yeah?
Yeah, and we supported a dozen international acts Paul Young, Culture Club, Simple Minds, and it was just.
So I'm not a fan, Helen. I'm not a fan of that theory of, right, we've got the record out. Of course, you throw it all out the window today. That system doesn't work. But you deliver the record, you drop the first two singles, which are upbeat, and we do a third, which is usually a ballad.
The ballad.
And, then we go out and we tour for 12 months, and we'll tour this record. I don't believe in any of that. I believe in that, yes, you tour it, but you've got to be stopping and writing all the time. They used to laugh at me over at Mushroom when I used to say that, because everybody
it was really hard work.
Yes, yeah, and you're looking for the quick buck, and how do you go in? Yeah. You should be, we're touring and we're going to have a month break now, and then we're back out and we're going to do a shitload of shows, and we're going to have another break for 2 or 3 weeks, and we're going to write and have a bit of brain downtime. But they never did it. It was always the quick buck, tour for a year.
No, and that was kind of like, that was the Deadpool model as well, let's not forget. I mean, Cold Chisel and the Angels were on the road 24/7.
Absolutely.
So I guess it was assumed that we would do the same thing. But it was very tiring, and it did cause fighting. It didn't give us any chance to reflect, not that we would have even known what reflect meant back then, but but to think about, well, how can we make this music improve and also keep us together?
Yeah.
But
how did you get to the second record?
We did some demos in Amsterdam in 1986 and worked with a couple of producers that just didn't work out. And then we came back feeling quite dejected. Yeah. And then we were connected up with Martin Rushent, who unfortunately not with us anymore, but Martin was Buzzcocks, Stranglers, Human League, and like massively, like every hit from the early 80s would have his fingerprints all over it. So we went back to England and worked with him on the second album, and I think for some reason it didn't get received as well as the first album. But I think it is a really good body of work, and
we've got Domestic Harmony is the first record, yeah?
Yeah.
Second record, The Happiest Place in Town, is that the second or the third?
Yeah, no, second. Yeah.
Right. Now, the third album was recorded, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, and not least.
And to this day, everybody, this is the hypocrisy of the industry, has not been released because EMI or Virgin holding it? Virgin, yeah. And
they won't give us the masters back.
No, because, they own it and they'll dictate to you, and one day they may release it. It's just blasphemy, and this goes on all the time. We've had it quite a few times. And so then,
that's what happens when you sign a contract in perpetuity for the universe, which is just so stupid, but that's what we all did back then.
Well, Helen, it came down to how good your lawyer was, and many an artist at Mushroom would never sign for perpetuity and would hang out, and then I suppose you're playing a game. How desperate do they want me? And will they take me? And the deals are either 3 or 5 year deals, and you had to be very careful, everybody. The stories I could tell is you don't want to become unrecouped. So it's very easy for you to accept as a band in your status there to go, we're going to Amsterdam, we're going to London, we're going everywhere, and these bills just keep ramping up.
Oh yeah.
Which
I mean, it was exciting, but I hear what you're saying. But we were one of the lucky ones. We came out of it without debt.
Yeah.
Whereas I think there were a number of our contemporaries, who came out of it in a terrible situation.
Yeah.
And everyone goes, oh shit, you must be rich by now. You've had a couple of hit singles, and it's like, no.
We were spending, obviously I won't name the artist, but, we would regularly spend $350,000 recording a record. I mean, unless you're going to have multiple number ones and have some form of success overseas, you haven't got a chance of paying that off, because then your videos will be 50% recoupable, and then there'll be all the other things in there that you'll agree to because you go, well, we won't spend that unless you want to make it recoupable. Anyway, we'll put all that aside because that's the ugly part, which kind of doesn't exist these days because a good, smart lawyer never allows a good musician to sign on that basis.
But the opportunities, I reckon the opportunities are fewer now, to be honest, because everybody, Stephen and I still write,
yes,
but there's no way we're going to get out there and perform, and there's not really, but it's so much cheaper to record and get your own system happening now at home. That more people are doing it. So, I mean, there are pluses and minuses in both situations.
Absolutely. Look, from our opinion, it's a young person's world in music, and those young people, say the 18 to 25, 27, they're so social media savvy and they know exactly where to hit it right, and they viral so quickly. It is so much more difficult for the mature artist, the heritage artist. So, I'll give you the other side, and I'm surprised Do Re Mi aren't bigger than what they are on the streaming sites. I mean, for everybody, if I have a look on here, Man Overboard's got nearly 1.4 million streams.
Yeah, right.
There's a sizable one there, but we have other artists around the same era who are getting 200,000-300,000 streams a month, and it depends where you connect and is there any social media going on and yada yada yada.
Yep.
But put that aside. So tell me what starts to happen. You come back from the UK, you've got the second record. You're going to do you go back to record the third record, correct?
Yes. Yep.
I'll be tongue in cheek. We're spending money like you've never seen before. Mate, the checks are being written out.
I know.
So you're back in London,
but because we had management, we didn't concern ourselves with it, and obviously that was a rookie error. But
don't even talk to me about it, Helen. I don't think that anybody.
I don't think we weren't concerned because no one else was concerned.
No, and because especially management like that think big time, and they only think worldwide, which never really only happens to the absolute one in a trillion out of Australia.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what they're thinking. So the money doesn't concern them. It doesn't matter that you're going to come out of it breaking even. It's if you're lucky, otherwise you're unrecouped.
No, as long because they'll get their money no matter what happens to us.
That 20% comes out first. Anyway, so you're back there recording.
And during that time, it's going to sound so funny, very Spinal Tap, but musically, Stephen and I were in sort of one camp, I suppose, and Deb and Torland in another camp. Deb, and you can see from her career now, was starting to move into a sort of a folk camp. And Stephen and I were still that kind of alternative guitar camp.
Pop rock, I call it.
Yeah, pop rock sort of stuff. So we were still sort of doing that kind of thing. And so there were some tensions there. But unbeknown to us, Deb had, I don't know. Deb's releasing a memoir later this year, I believe.
Yep.
And so there'll probably be a lot of detail in there around what happened. But from our perspective, it was very much, we were just, Keith called us and said, Deb's going to talk to you. She's going to leave the band. And so, we'd noticed that she wasn't particularly interested in the pre-production rehearsals for the songs.
Yep.
But we just thought, don't know what's going on there. But it's a shame that we couldn't have talked about it because basically we threw the baby out with the bathwater.
Look, and the thing is, people move on, don't they? And they do what they want to do, and that's that. Yeah.
But she, I think she was enticed by. And I know that people who shall remain unnamed.
Other management, you mean?
No, other musicians.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Who she knew.
Yes.
Were basically slagging us off, saying, "Oh, you don't want to." And these people are still around, and they're very, very high-profile Australian acts. That you don't want to be in a collective. You don't want to be in a in a democratic band. You want to get out there and you need to take control, which
You know my answer to that word democratic band? I want you to think, everybody to think U2 and Powderfinger, who are so successful.
And Hunters and Collectors.
Yeah, and
Midnight Oil.
absolutely. Well, if you think of U2 and Powderfinger, all songs were shared by the whole band. It wasn't just one or two
we wanted
writers,
to do.
right? And that kept them together and has kept all the infighting out.
Exactly.
So, you know.
And so as soon as there was some sort of, you can do better than that.
Yes.
I guess, Deb was keen to kind of explore those options.
What did you do? I mean, did you consider keeping Do Re Mi together or go, no, without Deb, there is no Do Re Mi?
Well, probably there were a number of responses to that because we had thought perhaps we could continue because the main songwriters at that time were the three of us.
All right.
Deb was just starting out in that kind of journey for her.
Yeah.
But also what happened was that Dorland decided that he would follow her, and so Stephen and I hung around in London for 6 months and worked with a few people, but it wasn't what we wanted to do. So we came back, and then that's where that was the end of that basically.
Did you join any other bands? Did you do anything else?
I did. I auditioned for the Go-Betweens, who subsequently split up about a week after the audition, so I often wonder whether it was my fault.
What a great band too, yeah.
Yeah. And and then Stephen and I had a couple of bands in the 90s, and we gigged around a little bit, wrote some songs.
Yeah.
Didn't release anything commercially, but released, we've got a catalogue, then I started.
Have we put any of that out at all, Helen?
No.
Well, we should be talking after this interview, shouldn't we?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, that'd be great.
For everybody listening, there's depth of catalogue there for Helen Carter.
And Stephen Phillips.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Remember, I'm not being chauvinistic here towards women. Because, and not against men, I always kind of think Helen Carter, that's terrible. But there's a new world coming.
That's okay.
Women are dominant.
Well, I think it would be great that we learn from each other and just stop having wars, stop killing each other, stop raping each other, well, actually, that's probably more one-sided, isn't it? But just if we can move on to a Don't
start me. I don't believe what's going on in the world today. I'm so focused on music, Helen. I mean, I'm very privileged that all I've done is entertainment my whole life. Nothing outside of it, and I'm so focused on music. I don't even know who's having number ones anymore because I'm focused on our artists, and we've got so many more exciting things happening. And I hate reading the paper and reading all what's going on. It is depressing, and music. I think brightens my day up. That's why I get excited when you go, we've got a lot of stuff we didn't put out commercially. I think, oh my God, there's some more music to listen to. I'm excited.
I will share it with you, and we can chat. But
so therefore, that's what you did there. So. And what happened? Did you just say, right, that's it, I have to live, I need to make money, and I'm going to go get a day job?
Yeah, pretty much. And it was really a time where, unless you sounded like Nirvana, you weren't really going to get a gig. And I don't know if it's any different to these days, but I couldn't do it on my own anymore.
Yeah,
I was doing everything. Yeah, basically managing everything and writing and going to work. I worked for Greenpeace for 8 years, and so it just all became. It sort of just fizzled out.
Well, for the listeners, the good side was that Do Re Mi came back together for a reunion tour pre-pandemic, and wow, what a show! Just what a bunch of shows, and the show I saw.
You loved it, didn't you?
Absolutely fantastic. I think you guys were looking fantastic. It was an all-girl band. It was, wasn't it? Even on drums.
Yes.
And that is just so unique. I mean, it's just unheard of, and that was fantastic in it too. No offence to the guys, I'm just saying it was just great to see a bunch of chicks up there, and it sounded
good
fantastic.
Players.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, who? Just for everybody listening, Who was the guitarist? There was the keyboard player and the drummer. Who were they?
Yep. So me and Deb, obviously, and the guitarist Bridie O'Brien, who you just don't know of these people because they're not. It's so hard to to
I do know the name.
Make a go of it. And so she's now moved on to being a visual artist.
Yeah.
So she's just like a creative being all in itself. But she's just the most extraordinary guitarist.
Oh, absolutely.
On drums, Julie Day, who was Stephen and I started working with her post Do Re Mi, and so we've had like a 35 year relationship and done various things together. And again, a remarkable musician.
Yeah.
And Cleo Renner is very well known. She is a very well known session musician and artist in her own right, and has worked with Deb, and also does the New Eve at the Opera House things, and has done I think Rock Whiz and things like that too. So
were the shows visually recorded at any of the shows or not?
Not professionally, but we do have some visual. Material that looks okay.
Laneway we should have at least gotten one of the shows, and we should have done a full-on record. You girls were looking fantastic. I mean, fantastic. How was it playing the bass again too on stage like that?
Oh, look, I just felt totally elated to be doing it, and so proud of that body of work. Plus, I was 59 when we did it.
I'm proud of it, Helen.
But like I just thought, wow, I can't believe I surprised myself, because it's not like I just you just have to relearn the song.
Yeah,
that came relatively easily, but it's the stamina that you need to actually engage with audiences, and there were big audiences on that By the Sea tour.
Absolutely,
and to make sure that you're up to scratch, because Deb had she's been in it for all that time,
seasoned,
and she's a professional, and so for someone like me to come back into that, and that whole thing wouldn't have happened without me, because I pushed it and I wanted to do it and made it happen, and I got the musicians together and got Deb to agree to it and all of that. But it was fabulous. It really was.
For everybody, it was absolutely fantastic night, and the band were just on fire. So, as you said,
is it true, Vincent? At the Corner Hotel, I think you told me after that was the first gig that you'd actually stayed to the end for a long time.
Absolutely. You can't get me to stay to any show for more than about 15, I know this sounds crazy, 15 minutes. That doesn't matter. Whether it's an international show or a local show, I can only probably do 15, 20 minutes. I've been to too many shows and played at too many shows. And I thought what was great, look, visually it was great to see 4 or 5 women up there, because you just don't get that opportunity very often in this business. And secondly, it sounded fantastic, and I loved the crowd response.
we had Danny Olish, who on front of house, who does Tina Arena and all these mega acts. I mean, we were just like blown away.
Absolutely, the sound was fantastic. And the Corner Hotel, quite frankly, for everybody, is not no matter what anyone would say, I've played it many times, it's not an easy room to get right. You do have to really have someone on the desk that knows what they're doing, and there's a lot that know what they're doing, but they don't get it right in there. It's really a hard room. And it sounded just fantastic. I mean, I couldn't get away from the place after the show, because there was people just hanging around and talking and telling me how good it was. Yes. So I'd like to get going. So it was. Look, it was fantastic, and and Deb was just vocally great, and I saw her the other day on a it probably was a Facebook post, and she was with Ziggy, and they were on tour somewhere, and they were on obviously a B&B where they were staying, and they were just singing together on the porch. Oh God, it was great. And
I know
it's just fantastic.
Her and Willie have done marvellous things. They really have.
Yeah, and so. that probably brings us to the end in the sense that that's where you're up to today. And firstly, yes, I would love to hear the stuff after you did to see if you'd like to release it. And secondly, I know your better half is still writing and recording. And what about yourself?
Well, I'm about 4 months away from retiring from the workforce.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to having some space and energy to reconnect with that side because it is important to me. But it's really hard to kind of have a day job and be. Yeah.
Well, we look forward to that
stuff,
because,
thank you.
I think if you've done it for so long, it's in your blood, and if you can, you must. For everybody listening, it's very difficult over a long span of time to keep those creative juices so excited. And so, if you can get it back, it's untenable. It just drives you crazy because you just want to be creative and throw this stuff out to people to listen to. And so we really look forward to that if we could see some more from, you got many years left in you, Helen. So
thank you.
Don't think that it can just stop here. I think just keep going. And the new world of record yourself on equipment at home. We have artists here that are recording all around the world. So there's someone will be, in France, someone will be in Sydney, someone will be in Melbourne. They keep shooting all their files around and here we go. We've got finished product.
Yeah.
It's so attainable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Well, it's been great talking to you, Helen. Helen Carter from Do Re Mi, and it's been what a journey. That was fantastic. Mm-hmm. So we'd love to talk to you about your new material, probably in the next 6 to 12 months, eh?
Sounds like a plan. Thank you so much.
Don't let us down. We're going to be hounding you. All right.
No pressure.
See you, Helen. Bye.
Bye, Vincent.
Bye.
Well, there you have it, another Laneway Talks. If you enjoyed that, just search Laneway Talks for more great conversations.